Hello, bonjour, 你好，Anya, hola，我是
The boy CP.
Get that garbage out of here!
What's good everybody, this is CP and welcome back to my NBA Fantasy series. If this is your first time here, be sure to check out my fantasy playlist with the links below and find out about potential sleepers, undervalued players, and some you might want to avoid drafting too early this year. Today I'll be talking about NBA rookies and young players in the Western Conference you might want to target in deep keeper or dynasty leagues, as these players' fantasy value might be the cheapest they will ever be for a long time, considering how many of them have a good chance to significantly improve over the next 2 to 4 years. For example, if you drafted or traded for Giannis Antetokounmpo back in 2013-14, you would have benefited from one of the biggest fantasy returns in recent memory. During that time, we saw him improve from being a player that only averaged 6.8 points a game to becoming an NBA All-Star and a top 10 fantasy player. I'm not saying that any of the players on this list will be the next Giannis, but at the same time, their fantasy value might significantly increase and give you a nice return on investment. So without further ado, let's get it. Dennis Smith Jr. had a pretty decent stat line as an NBA rookie, averaging over 15 points and 5 assists last season. He joined an elite group of players who did the same in their rookie year, including Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, and John Wall. Overall, Smith Jr. is one of the more physically explosive young point guards in the NBA today. He has an elite first step with terrific vertical explosiveness, and if you add that to his great ball handling skills, it often allows him to get separation from opponents with ease. Needless to say, the Dallas Mavericks point guard is one of the most exciting young players to watch today. In fact, his playing style reminds me a bit of Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, and Damian Lillard. It's obvious that his shooting could be better, but his jump shot is still good enough to make him a threat to score from distance. Heading into his sophomore season, Smith Jr. should benefit from new talent brought into Dallas this offseason. Adding a player like DeAndre Jordan should make Smith Jr. more efficient in pick and roll situations. Meanwhile, adding a player like Luka Doncic should open up the floor for Smith to use his speed to attack and transition. Right now, Smith is not a top tier point guard yet, but if he continues to develop his offensive game and improve his jump shot, he could potentially be a top 5 or a top 10 fantasy point guard within the next 2 to 4 years. Yahoo has Smith Jr. ranked 86 overall right now, so it looks like a great opportunity to buy in on him right now and reap the benefits of a nice return over the next 2 to 4 years. Luka Doncic is another young Dallas Maverick player you might want to target this year, especially before too many people catch on. Heading into the 2018 NBA draft, many believe Doncic was one of the most fundamentally sound prospects they have seen in years. He was the youngest MVP in EuroLeague history and had great success playing against men as a teenager. Scouts believe Doncic has a good chance of making an immediate impact for the Mavs this year. At 6'8" and 220 pounds, the 19-year-old has elite playmaking abilities and excellent court vision. He is a versatile scorer who can shoot off the dribble, post up smaller players, and attack the basket as well. With his skill set and physique, Doncic is a special hybrid combo guard / wing who can play 3 positions and be counted on as a reliable ball handler. Although they don't play the exact same type of game, I could see Doncic putting up a similar stat line to what Ben Simmons did during his rookie season. There's a lot to like about Doncic, and if his game is able to translate at the NBA level, he could be one of the biggest rising stars in the NBA for the next 3 to 5 years. Nobody expected Donovan Mitchell to be as good as he was during his rookie season. He put up an impressive stat line averaging 20.5 points along with 3.7 assists and 3.7 rebounds. Overall, Mitchell did not look like a rookie at all and was arguably one of the most polished first-year players to enter the NBA in recent memory. At 22 years old, it looks like Mitchell still has a lot more room to grow and improve. Fantasy-wise, this is good news for managers that already own him. As he continues to improve and becomes more efficient in his game, it might not be too long until we see him average 25 and 5 very soon. Right now, his fantasy stock is already quite high, but he is not a top tier fantasy guard yet. I have him on this list because I don't think Mitchell has truly reached his fantasy ceiling or max potential. In fact, I could see him becoming a perennial all-star in the NBA in the coming years, and might even have a chance to become the best fantasy shooting guard in the NBA in the near future. And once he gets there, he could stay there for a good 4 to 5 years. With that said, Mitchell's fantasy value right now might be the cheapest it will ever be for a long time. DeAndre Ayton is one of the most exciting prospects to enter the Phoenix Suns organization in years. Taken first overall at the 2018 NBA draft, Ayton will be the team's starting center from day one. At 7'1" and 250 pounds, Ayton doesn't shy away from contact and has all the tools to become a physically dominant center in the paint. On top of that, he runs exceptionally well for his size and excels in transition. He also has a decent shot, can consistently hit open jumpers, and sometimes even surprise opponents from beyond the arc. During Summer League, he averaged 14.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 1 block per game. No questions, the Suns expect him to be one of their best players very soon. With guaranteed minutes to develop, Ayton should be able to give you decent fantasy value in points and rebounds right away, and might even finish his rookie campaign averaging a double-double. His defense does need some work, and it might take him a few years to be considered an elite fantasy big man on both ends of the floor. The last time I checked, Yahoo has him ranked in the top 70, but given his upside, I expect him to make his way into the top 40 in the next 2 to 3 years and be there for a long time. Marvin Bagley III is another high-end prospect entering the NBA this year. Taken second overall by Sacramento at the 2018 draft, it looks like the Kings will try to make Bagley a key piece of their franchise. Bagley only played 1 year in college at Duke, and as an 18-year-old freshman, he averaged 21 points and 11.1 rebounds per game. At 6'11" and 235 pounds, Bagley will likely see time at both the power forward and center position. He has excellent offensive skills, has an advanced post game with good range on his shot, and can keep up in transition. His defense needs a bit of work, but he does have good length and an incredible vertical leap. So if he is able to utilize those tools to his advantage, he could excel on the defensive end of the floor as well. It is still early, but I could see Bagley posting around 12 points and 8 rebounds a game as an NBA rookie. At this point, he is still a work in progress, but his ceiling is high and he might even have superstar potential. Let's hope the Sacramento Kings don't screw this one up. Overall, I wouldn't hesitate to take a chance on Bagley now before he figures things out in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox was the 5th overall pick of the Sacramento Kings back in 2017. He did not have an outstanding rookie season but still showed flashes of potential. Considering how stacked his draft class was, Fox might be overlooked and should fly under the radar for the next few years. But with the keys to engine the Sacramento offense, his value could gradually increase and give his owners a nice return starting this season. I expect him to build upon the 11.4 points and 4.4 assists he averaged during his rookie year to maybe around 15 points and 6 assists next year. And once he reaches his prime, I wouldn't be surprised to see Fox average around 20 points and 8 assists per game. According to Yahoo, he is not a top 120 fantasy player yet, so it seems like now is a good time to buy or trade for Fox before he hits his prime. Some scouts see him with potential to become a John Wall type of player in the NBA. If those comparisons are true, Fox could be a top 10 or a borderline top 5 fantasy point guard someday. This makes him a pretty solid guard to build your team around in the near future. DeJounte Murray is another young point guard in the Western Conference you might want to keep an eye on in the near future. Despite spending the last 2 seasons fine-tuning his game, it looks like the Spurs are finally ready to unleash him and give him a chance to max out his potential. With Tony Parker gone, Manu retiring, and Kawhi traded to Toronto, we may start to see Murray start entering his prime this year, and fantasy-wise, his value to significantly trend up over the next few seasons. Murray is already one of the best young defensive point guards in the NBA, so he should be able to give you a decent amount of steals right away. With an expanded role, we should see his minutes increase from the 21.5 he averaged last year to somewhere around 30 or more this season. Add that to an increased usage rate and more efficient shooting, we should see improvements in points, assists, and rebounds as well. His per 36 minute stats are pretty solid already, averaging around 15 points, 2 steals, 8 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. But at only 22 with plenty of time to grow, I could see him averaging closer to 18 points, 2 steals, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists per game once he starts hitting his prime. I don't know about you, but those are pretty decent fantasy numbers one could ask for in a point guard. And once he figured things out, he could be a borderline top 20 fantasy player in the coming years. Devin Booker is already a pretty well-known fantasy commodity in most fantasy leagues. By no means is he a perfect player. In fact, he could be one of the more frustrating players to own, as his field goal percentage is definitely not one of his strong suits. But at the same time, many people forget that he is only turning 22 this year and is already entering his 4th NBA season. At 21 years old, he already averaged close to 25 points a game along with 4.5 rebounds and 4.7 assists. To put things into perspective, he averaged very similar numbers to Kobe Bryant around the same age. but Booker never got a chance to play with a Hall of Fame player like Shaq early in his career. Now, I'm not saying that Booker would turn out to be as good or as successful as Kobe, but if you look at his numbers, Booker's is one of the few young guards in the NBA that could average 30 points along with 6 assists and 6 rebounds during his prime. Obviously, a lot of that depends on Booker and how much he is able to improve, but given his age and what he has been able to do on some very bad Phoenix Suns teams, he is one of the young shooting guards in the NBA I'm willing to bet on. Like Donovan Mitchell, I think Booker has a shot at becoming the best fantasy shooting guard in the NBA one day. Besides that, once he hits his prime, I could see him being a top tier fantasy player for a good 5 to 8 years. So perhaps now is the best time to buy in on Booker before he starts putting up Kobe-like numbers. So that's a look at some players you might want to target for the long-term future. And if you have been enjoying my NBA fantasy series, please show me some love by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And that's it for today. I'll see everybody next time.